The night shift at Pine Hollow. The job listing said overnight security. Remote facility, no experience necessary. It said the pay was $22 an hour, which for night security in 2014 was almost double the going rate, and it said housing was provided. I was 26, broke, freshly divorced, and willing to do just about anything that came with a place to sleep that was not my car. I drove 4 hours into the Cascades to a relay station the listing called Pine Hollow, and I took the job, and I lasted 19 nights, and I have spent every year since trying to convince myself that I imagined the 20th. Pine Hollow was not really a facility in the way you would picture one. It was a fenced compound at the dead end of a logging road, 2 hours from the nearest town, set in a bowl of land surrounded on all sides by old-growth forest so thick and dark that, even at midday, the place felt like it was at the bottom of a well. There was a main building full of communications equipment that hummed day and night, a few outbuildings, a tall antenna array with red lights that blinked at the sky, and a small bunkhouse where the night man slept during the day. There was a chain-link fence around the whole thing, 8 feet high, topped with barbed wire, and I remember thinking on my first day that it was an awful lot of fence for a place in the middle of nowhere, with nothing around for 100 miles. That could possibly want in. The day man was named Garrett. He worked sunup to sundown, I worked sundown to sunup, and the changeover was the only human contact either of us got. Garrett was maybe 60, lean and weathered, and he did not talk much. On my first evening he walked me through the routine in about 10 minutes. Hourly walk of the perimeter, log it in the book. Check the equipment readings, log them in the book. Stay inside the fence. Keep the gate locked. If the equipment alarms, call the number on the wall. And then, at the door, on his way out to his truck, he stopped and told me the rest of it, the part that was not in any manual. He said, "You are gonna hear things out in the trees at night. Don't go look. You are gonna see lights sometimes, out past the fence, low to the ground, moving. Don't go look. And sometimes it is gonna sound like somebody calling for help out there. A man, a woman, a kid, do not matter. It will sound real. It will sound like they are hurt and close. And they know your name. Do not open that gate. Do not go past the fence. There is nobody out there who needs your help. The fence is there for a reason. You stay inside it till the sun comes up. And I come back, and you will be fine." Every man who has worked this shift and quit because he went and looked. Don't go look. Then he got in his truck and drove off up the logging road. And I watched his headlights disappear into the trees, and the dark came down over Pine Hollow like a lid on a pot, and I was alone. The first few nights were just lonely. The forest made noise, the way forests do. Wind in the high branches, the creak of trunks, the occasional crash of a falling limb. Somewhere out in the dark, the calls of owls and the yip of coyotes. Far off, I did my hourly walks with a heavy flashlight and a thermos of coffee, and I logged my readings, and I read paperbacks at the desk, and I told myself the 22 an hour was the easiest money I would ever made. Garrett's little speech I chalked up to an old man messing with the new guy. Every workplace has its hazing. It was the 4th night that I first heard the calling. I was on my 2 a.m. perimeter walk, coming around the back side of the compound where the fence ran closest to the tree line, when I heard a voice out in the woods. A man's voice, maybe 40 yards out, past the fence, in the black under the trees. He was calling, "Hello. Hello, is somebody there? Please, I can see your light, I need help." And every instinct I had wanted to answer him, because he sounded real, he sounded scared. And exhausted and hurt, the way a man sounds when he has been lost in the woods for a day and a night and has finally seen a light and let himself hope. I actually opened my mouth to call back. And then Garrett's voice was in my head. "Do not go look. There is nobody out there who needs your help," and something cold went down my spine, because I realized the voice was not moving. A real lost man, seeing a light, would come toward it. He would stumble closer, calling, crashing through the brush. This voice was staying exactly 40 yards out, calling in the same even, pleading tone, and it had been going for a full minute, without coming one step nearer. And that was wrong, that was so deeply wrong that the hair stood up all over my body. I backed away from the fence. I kept my flashlight pointed at the trees. And I backed all the way to the main building. And I went inside and locked the door. And through the door I could still hear him, faintly, calling for help. "Please, please, I know you can hear me," for almost an hour before it finally stopped. I did not log it. I did not know how to write down what had just happened. I sat at the desk with the lights on and the equipment humming, and I did not go back out for my 3 a.m. walk, and when Garrett came at dawn I must have looked like hell, because he just glanced at me and said, "You heard him." Not a question. I nodded. He said, "Good. You did not go look. Keep not looking." And that was all. After that it got worse, the way these things do, ramping up a little each night as if it were testing me, learning what I would respond to. The calling came most nights now. It got cleverer. It stopped being a stranger. One night it was a woman crying, and then the woman started saying a name. And the name was my ex-wife's name, Megan. Except it was crying it in my own voice. Sobbing, "Megan, Megan, please," the way I must have sounded the night she left. And I had never told a living soul those things, and I stood at the fence shaking because something in those woods knew them. Another night it was my mother, who'd been dead 3 years, calling me by the name only she ever used. And I put my hands over my ears and walked away, and it followed me along the inside of the fence. Her voice, keeping pace just past the wire, pleading, and I started seeing the lights Garrett had mentioned, low to the ground, out past the fence. Pale and yellowish, drifting between the trees. Sometimes one, sometimes a dozen, bobbing along at about the height of a man's chest. Except they moved wrong, too smooth, no bounce of footsteps. When I shined my flashlight at them they did not reflect and they did not scatter. They just stopped, and hung there in the dark. And I had the unbearable sense that on the other side of each light something was standing very still and looking back at me. By the 10th night I had stopped doing the perimeter walks. I logged them as if I would done them. God forgive me, because I could not make myself go out there in the dark anymore. I stayed in the main building with every light on and the door locked, and I watched the bank of small windows, and the things in the woods watched back. And we passed the nights like that. Them outside the fence and me inside it. In a standoff I did not understand the rules of. On the 12th night something happened that I have never been able to explain and have never told anyone. I would dozed off at the desk despite myself, just for a few minutes, and I woke to find the logbook open in front of me to a fresh page, and on that page, in handwriting that was almost mine but not quite, too neat, the letters too even, someone had written the same line over and over, top to bottom, filling the whole page. It said, "Let me in and I will do your walks for you." I had been alone. The door had been locked. No one had come in. I tore the page out and I burned it in the metal trash can, and I did not sleep again on that shift. Not once, not for a second, because I understood that the standoff had a third rule I had not known about, which was that it could reach in while I slept, and that the only thing keeping it outside the wire was me being awake to keep it there. I thought about quitting. I should have quit, but I had nowhere to go and no money to get there and a paycheck coming, and so I stayed, and I told myself I only had to last until I had enough saved to start over somewhere. And I counted the nights. On the 14th night, the things at the fence changed their tactics. They stopped calling for help. Instead, they started knocking. There would be a tap at one of the windows of the main building, a soft, polite tap tap tap, and I would look and there'd be nothing there, just the dark and the blinking red lights of the antenna. Then a tap at another window, the other side of the room. Then the door. Always soft, always polite, the knock of a guest, not an intruder. And a voice at the door, calm and friendly. Now, no longer pleading, saying things like, "It is awfully cold out here. Won't you let me in for a minute? Just to warm up. You seem like a kind person. I can tell you are a kind person." And the worst part, the part that nearly worked, was that after 2 weeks of that crushing loneliness, after 14 nights with no human voice but Garrett's 10 seconds at dawn, some starved part of me wanted to open the door, wanted the company. That is what it was after, I understand. Now, it was not trying to scare me into opening the door, it was trying to make me lonely enough to open it on my own. I called the number on the wall once. Around the 15th night, when I could not take it anymore. I do not know what I expected. A boss, a supervisor, somebody to tell me what the hell I was guarding and what was in the trees. The phone rang twice and a man's voice answered, older, tired, and before I could say anything he said, "You are inside the fence." I said yes. He said, "Then everything's working the way it is supposed to. The fence holds them. Your job is not to understand it, son. Your job is to keep the gate shut and stay on your side of the wire till the sun comes up. The fence has held for 50 years. Don't be the man who opens it." And he hung up. I never called again. The 19th night was quiet. Eerily, completely quiet. No calling, no lights, no knocking. I should have known that was the worst sign of all. Out in nature, when the woods go silent, it means a predator is moving through. I spent that whole silent night more frightened than I would been on any of the loud ones. Sitting bolt upright at the desk, watching the windows, waiting for something that never came. At dawn Garrett's truck rolled in and I nearly wept with relief. And as I handed off he looked at me a long moment and said, "It has gone quiet on you." I said yes, and his face changed in a way it never had before, and he said, "That means it is done learning you. Tonight it is gonna try for real. You listen to me. Tonight, no matter what you hear, no matter who it sounds like, no matter how sure you are, you do not open that gate. You promise me." I promised. And he drove off, and I slept badly through the day in the bunkhouse. And the sun went down on my 20th night at Pine Hollow. It came a little after midnight. I heard a vehicle on the logging road. Which had never happened, no one came at night. And headlights swung down through the trees and a truck pulled up to the outside of the gate. And it was Garrett's truck. The same truck. And Garrett got out, in the headlights. And came up to the gate. And he looked exactly like Garrett, and he called to me in Garrett's voice, "Hey, it is me. I forgot my heart pills in the bunkhouse. I have been driving around all night feeling like I am gonna have an attack. I need you to open the gate and let me grab M, hurry up now, I do not feel right." And God help me, I started toward the gate, because it was Garrett. It was his truck, his voice, his walk, the way he hooked his thumbs in his belt, everything. I had the key in my hand. I was 3 steps from the lock. And then I saw it. The headlights of the truck were on, the engine was running, but Garrett, standing there in front of them, cast no shadow. The light went through where his shadow should have been and laid down clean on the gravel. And the man standing in the high beams through nothing at all. And I stopped. And the thing wearing Garrett saw that I would stopped, saw that I would seen, and its friendly worried expression did not change, it kept smiling Garrett's tired smile, but the voice that came out of it dropped all the warmth at once and said, flat and patient and not human in any way, "Open the gate." I backed away. I did not run. Some animal part of me knew not to run. I backed toward the main building with my eyes on it, and it stood at the gate. Smiling Garrett's smile, and behind it, out of the tree line on every side, the lights came. Dozens of them now, the low pale lights, drifting out of the woods toward the fence. And behind each light I could finally see, in the glow of the truck's high beams, what stood there. They were tall and thin and the color of something that has never seen the sun. And their faces were almost like ours. Almost, the way the woman on the road was almost. And they pressed up against the chain link, all the way around the compound, hundreds of long pale fingers hooking through the wire. And they did not climb it and they did not tear it, they only pushed, gently, testing, all of them at once, and the whole fence groaned. The thing wearing Garrett kept saying it, over and over, in a voice that was less and less like Garrett's each time, "Open the gate, open the gate, open the gate," and the fence groaned and bowed inward under all those pale hands. And I understood with total clarity that the fence was not just chain link, that it had held for 50 years because something more than steel was in it, and that it would hold only as long as no one inside opened it from within. They could not open it themselves. That was the whole game. That was why they learned your voices and your dead and your loneliness. They needed you to open it. The fence did not keep them out. My hand on the lock was the only thing that ever could. I locked myself in the main building and I called the number on the wall, and the tired old voice answered on the first ring this time, like he would been waiting, and I said, "They are at the fence, all of them. It is wearing Garrett's face," and the voice said, very calmly, "Then you do the only thing there is to do. You turn off every light in the building, so it can't see you through the windows. And you sit on the floor in the dark, and you do not make a sound. And you do not open that gate, and you wait for the sun." "Can you do that?" I said I did not know. He said, "You have to. There is nobody coming to do it for you. Just you and the wire till dawn." And he stayed on the line with me, that stranger, for 5 hours, mostly in silence, just breathing, just there, while outside the things pressed at the fence and the thing with Garrett's face circled, the building tapping on every window and calling me by every name I would ever answer to, and I sat on the floor in the pitch dark, with my back against the desk and my hands over my mouth, and I did not open the gate. The sun came up at 6:14. I have never in my life been so glad to see anything. As the gray light came into the bowl of land, the pressure at the fence eased. The pale things drew back into the trees, the way a tide goes out. And the last of them to go was the thing, wearing Garrett, standing at the gate. And as the real sun touched it, the Garrett shape sort of came apart, went thin and wrong and folded back into the dark of the tree line, and it was gone. The real Garrett's truck came up the logging road at 6:40. The real Garrett, who cast a shadow, who had his heart pills in his own pocket, where they would been all along. He took one look at me sitting on the floor of the main building in the dark with the phone still in my hand, and he knew. He just said, "It tried for real." I said, "Yes." He said, "And you did not open it?" I said, "No." And the old man, who in 3 weeks had never said more than 20 words to me at a time, sat down on the floor next to me and put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Then you are a better man than the last 3. Go home, son. Don't come back. The pay's good because nobody can do it long, and the ones who do it too long, they start to want to open the gate, just to see. Go home while you still do not want to." I drove out of Pine Hollow that morning, and I never went back. I do not know what that place really was. I do not know what was in the equipment that hummed day and night, or whether the equipment was ever the point at all, or whether the only thing that compound was ever built to do was put a fence and a man between the things in those woods and the rest of us. I have come to think the equipment was a cover story and the fence was the whole job. And that there are places like it all over this country, at the dead ends of logging roads and out past the last exit, fences with a man inside them, holding a line the rest of us do not know exists. I still dream about it. In the dream I am back inside the wire and the sun never comes, and the thing at the gate has my own face now, and it is so reasonable, so calm, and it just wants me to open the gate. Just for a minute, just to see. And every night in the dream I almost do. Because that is the thing Garrett never said out loud, the thing the tired voice on the phone understood, the thing that made me quit while I still could. It is not hard to keep the gate shut, because you are brave. It is hard because after enough nights alone in the dark, some part of you wants to open it.